66% less sodium in the same great taste. No, I think I'll stick to my sea salt. But you've probably heard it all before. Lower your salt intake as much as possible to lower your blood pressure and reduce your risk of heart disease. Now, the problem is, it's a little bit more complicated than that. Like everything we've been discussing over the past few weeks, it's never that simple. It's never black and white. And salt is no exception. And we've probably got a little bit more flexibility with our salt intake than we've previously been led to believe. So in this video, we're going to be looking at the science of salt intake, or specifically sodium, on our blood pressure and our health. And we're going to give you some practical evidence-based guidelines you can follow to ensure that your salt intake isn't having a negative impact on your health. Hey everyone, my name's Robbie. I'm a registered nutritionist here at Second Nature, and today we're talking all about salt. Should you avoid it? No. And how to include it in a healthy, balanced lifestyle. Salt is added to foods for flavor and preservation, and typical table salt is a combination of sodium at around 40% and chloride at around 60%. Both sodium and chloride are essential minerals for a healthy diet. They play an important role in the contraction and relaxation of our muscles and the conduction of nerve signals. They also help our bodies maintain a healthy balance of minerals and water, which is known as our blood osmolality. And having too little salt in our diet can actually lead to health problems. Research on rats found that the higher the intake of sodium in the diet, the higher the blood pressure. And in human studies, an observational study known as the InterSalt study found that for every tablespoon of salt added to the diet, systolic blood pressure rose by 3 to 6 millimeters of mercury. This then led to global recommendations to reduce our salt intake. But the question is, as it was an observational study, it can't prove causality. Where was the salt coming from? What the authors of this study also noted was that around 83% of the salt consumed in the British diet was coming from packaged and ultra-processed foods, with only 17% coming from the salt we're actually adding ourselves. It's then difficult to know whether it was the salt in the diets that was having this impact on blood pressure or the other impact of those foods on our health. We know that an excess consumption of ultra-processed foods can lead to things like insulin resistance and chronic inflammation. Both of these factors could have led to the development of blood pressure. We also know that people who tend to consume high levels of ultra-processed foods also tend to lead unhealthier lifestyles. They're more likely to smoke, they're more likely to drink more alcohol, and they're less likely to be physically active. And considering the impact of all those factors on our blood pressure, it's really difficult to disentangle which one is having the effect. So the intake in blood pressure in this study is probably more of a reflection of the overall impact of our lifestyles on blood pressure than salt alone. It's not to say that excessive salt intake doesn't have an impact on our blood pressure. An excess intake of anything tends to not be a good thing, but it's really difficult to say salt is bad from this study, considering all of the factors that could have been influencing the outcome, in this instance, blood pressure. The exact causes of blood pressure are multifaceted and complex, with many things having an influence, such as your genetics or your lifestyle. However, it seems there are two key elements in the development of blood pressure that we can focus on through changes to your lifestyle. Number 1, the retention of excess sodium in the kidneys. This leads to the retaining of more water in the body and increasing blood pressure over time. And number 2, something known as vasoconstriction, where your blood vessels become stiff and prevent healthy blood flow. Your heart pumps harder, which increases your blood pressure, to try and improve circulation. So if we can focus on these two factors, we'll be able to improve our blood pressure through changes to our lifestyle. Specifically, this can happen by reducing insulin resistance, lowering our cortisol levels, and increasing our potassium intake. So this is where it gets a little bit complicated. So while research has shown that lowering your salt intake can reduce your blood pressure by a very modest amount, between 1 to 3 millimeters of mercury, this seems to only really affect people that are salt sensitive. Now, it seems that around 50% of people with hypertension are salt sensitive, and only around 26 of people with healthy blood pressure are salt sensitive. And if we reflect on one of the major things causing high blood pressure, which is the retention of sodium in the kidneys, it makes sense that if you lower your salt intake through your diet, you do reduce the amount of salt in your body, and therefore you might see a modest drop in your blood pressure. However, it's not getting to the root cause of the problem, which is the retention of sodium within the kidneys themselves. And lowering your salt intake, while maybe lowering the amount of sodium in your body, won't actually help your body excrete excess sodium out. So really we need to be focusing on two things. We need to help the body excrete excess sodium out of the kidneys, so the body can help to manage the levels of sodium in the body, and we need to reduce vasoconstriction, neither of which are really affected by reducing salt in your diet. Well, this is where we need to reflect on the bigger picture. If around 80% of the salt in our diets is coming from ultra-processed packaged foods, then the first step to improving your blood pressure would likely need to be to move to a healthier diet based on whole foods. If you've reached a point where you're already eating a healthy diet and you're cooking the majority of your foods from scratch, then we'd recommend using sea salt and seasoning to taste. Not overdoing it. Like we said, excess anything is typically not a good thing. So it doesn't mean you can free pour table salt into all your foods. Just season to taste as you go. And typically the amount of salt which is beneficial for the recipe to taste good is normally going to be the amount which is probably going to be beneficial for your health as well. Now, if you're salt sensitive, it might be that you need to pay a little closer attention to your salt intake. Maybe you'd benefit from using these low salt products as well. But generally, the overall impact of your lifestyle, managing stress, exercising, a healthy dietary pattern is going to get you most of the way to a healthy blood pressure. Okay, everyone, thanks for watching. That's all from me today. Now, next week, we're going to be looking at how to reduce your blood pressure through lifestyle. We'll be looking at how to lower insulin resistance, how to lower your cortisol levels, and how to increase your potassium intake, all of which will have a systemic impact on improving your blood pressure in the long term. But for now, thanks for watching. And if you've enjoyed what we've put together, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Bye-bye then. Bye-bye. Bye.